Want to receive monies from UK, Europe, USA, Canada, Switzerland, and the rest of the world? Supersonic's money transfer has got you covered. With the largest payout network in the Gambia, you can now receive your monies anywhere you are, from Kartong to Koina, with less hassle. Yes! You can receive monies from your family and friends in UK, Europe, USA, Canada, Switzerland, and the rest of the world with our safe, secure, fast, and convenient service that offers you the largest selection of payout locations in the Gambia. Supersonic's money transfer. We are currently in 34 African countries and counting, giving you quality money remittance services that are second to none. Visit the Google Play Store or the Apple Store today to download the Supersonics Money Transfer app and enjoy excellent money transfer services only with Supersonics.
Nationwide, and Fonyi is no exception. Currently, as we speak, there's a tractor in Kanjibado that is very close to where I'm from. There is a tractor in Somita Mixed Farming Center, and there is a tractor in Bullock. So the Honorable Speaker from Fonyi, be rest assured that the tractors were distributed evenly entire country, and Fonyi was definitely not discriminated. Post-harvest waste. And this is a serious concern for the ministry. We just returned from Kigali on a summit that was entirely dedicated on post-harvest waste management. So, Honorable Member from Nyamina, I would be happy to inform you our project, Roots, is going to build 15 cold storage facilities nationwide. In 2022, this year, we have laid foundation to build 3. One in Soma, one in Basse, and one in Wasu. And those stores should be ready. The project should take 12 months. And those cold stores should be able to help with the store issues until the 15 is built nationwide as cold stores. However, the ministry has a short and long-term view as to our national food security, and that includes food banking. And when we talk about food banking, the long-term plan is for every region in this country to have one mega store, that is to be able to have food bank that is going to buffer this country for a period of minimum of 6 months, because there may be many external shocks. Currently, the Giraffe project is going to build a store in URR and CRR, minimum measurement of 20 by 40. And we expect this to cover the entire country each region should have one mega store. However, the traditional stores that are known as magazine will be rehabilitated, and we are aware of their nucleus function, that is the function at the village level. Honorable Speaker, there was a question from Honorable Member for Joshua, and he questioned about Kamalo Feed Factory. Kamalo Feed Factory, for your information, Honorable Member, is not under the Ministry of Agriculture. The Kamalo Feed Factory, Honorable Speaker, is jointly owned by the ports and Social Security. Yes, the Ministry of Agriculture has a vested interest in the functioning of the Kamalo Feed Factory, because this country can never stop importation of chicken if we do not develop our chicken industry. And our chicken industry can never develop if we don't have enough chicken feed. And that factory is paramount in that endeavor. However, it is currently owned by the ports and Social Security jointly. Honorable Speaker, there was a question about fertilizer from a honorable member for Jokadu, and this has to do with fertilizer leakage to our neighboring countries or across the border in 2021. This did happen in 2021. Fertilizer did leak out across the borders. This was common knowledge. However, this was done by unscrupulous businessmen, because there was a limit as to how much every individual can buy. What some unpatriotic Gambians did was to go and collect family members, friends, 20 or 30 people, and come and queue for them or collect their ID cards. If you are supposed to buy 7, you go and collect 7 ID cards or collect 7 family members, of course you'll be able to buy 70. There's no way the ministry could stop that. And that is what caused the blame. However, in 2022, when we received the fertilizer, one of the things that we put in place was we no longer are going to sell fertilizer except to the cooperatives, which are very well-structured systems, and no individual businessman was involved. So in 2022, there is not a single report of fertilizer bleeding across the border, because we only sold it to our cooperative societies and not to any individual businessman. Honorable Speaker, we had a couple of questions that came regarding animal drinking points. This is a concern, because yes, in the Gambia, it's not yet a flashpoint between herders and crop producers. However, the potentials exist. But the small ruminant projects, which honorable members here alluded to, has already dug 20 drinking points. The only reason why probably you are not seeing the impact is because the contract was given in 2 phases. Phase one was to have the borehole dug and put in place, and phase 2 is to erect the rest of the structures. The contract has already been awarded, and by the end of the year, we should see all the 20 drinking spots for animals being in a fully fledged functional state. There was also an issue about youth empowerment in agriculture. Agriculture cannot develop without the youthful population of this country. We are fully aware of that. And knowing very well, our giraffe project currently has 40 gardens to be started in this country. And some members in this house have already benefited from these 40 gardens, because I have communicated to a few. These gardens are divided into 2. 20 are purely youth-led gardens, and the other 20 are purely women-led gardens. So the involvement of youth in agriculture is very real. We are fully aware of that. And our Roots project has trained over 100 youth in this country in agricultural entrepreneurship. So our ministry is fully aware of the potential and the role of youth in developing agriculture in this country. There was a question regarding value addition and availability or access to market. Access to market has been a challenge. It is multifaceted, and it involves so many ministries. However, access this year one of our projects has a 200-kilometer feeder road component. And these 200 kilometers will be implemented through the NRA. They are the most appropriate agency to deal with roads. These 200 kilometers of feeder roads will be in components. One is access to the fields. Two is access to markets. So we are fully aware of access, especially for all the vegetable gardens. All the vegetable gardens that are going to be built by the Roots project has a component of an access road so that women can access the fields, but also they can access the markets. But again, talking about value addition, our Giraffe project is going to build 2 agrology centers, one in Wasu and one in Farafenni. And these agrology centers will cost about $200 million. What these centers will do, they are going to be a one-stop shop center. The center will have a garage, it will have a market, it will have a bank, it will have a processing facility, it will also have a cold storage, so that when the women bring their vegetable products, sell, and it's not finished, they are not pushed to sell cheap, as it is occurring now. This will give them the opportunity to be able to sell, and when it is not finished, they can put it in the cold storage. And also the bank will be next door, so they are also trained in entrepreneurship. So they are able to save their money, and they have access coming in and out because it will be next to the garage. So these agrology centers, one will be located in Farafenni and one will be located in Wasu, and they should be fully functional in 2023. There was also an issue regarding pasture and grazing. It all has to do with the animal herders and the farmers. Yes, there are certain parts of the country that have not demarcated lands or areas for pasture. However, this is a challenge, but in the Greater Banjul area or in the Upper West Coast, where there is serious population density and there is beginning to realize certain clashes between animals and human interface, either in traffic or at human level, the Small Ruminant Project has started distributing pasture seeds. What these seeds will do, especially for the small ruminant farmers, that is sheep and goat, these seeds, once put to use, it will have a very highly nutritious grass that will be able to feed the small ruminants in-house. Even a 1 hectare kind of facility should be able to take care of a small ruminant farm. So this is one of the things that the Small Ruminant Project is doing as far as grazing land is concerned, especially in the urban areas. However, the rural areas is still a challenge. We are aware of that, but you must understand that grazing land is multifaceted, just like markets. It has to do with multiple ministries, and it has a lot of traditional land tenure system. It has a lot of underlying factors, which the ministry is fully aware, and we are working through our traditional operators, that is the governor and the chief, to make sure these are settled amicably. Honorable Speaker, I think these were mainly the issues that were addressed. However, one more thing was, I think, a question from member for Latrikunda. He asked about our involvement of private individuals in agriculture or private partnerships. I am happy to announce to this House today that the Ministry of Agriculture currently has about 5 PPPs, that is public-private partnership. And the most famous one you heard about, I'm sure you, or maybe you haven't, is Maru Farms. It is a very successful story, but we also have Salih Mbalo and Sons, and we have 3 others. These are individuals that are in partnership with the ministry. We are supporting them with equipment and fertilizer, and they are doing the outreach kind of catchment area farming. That is, they have their farms, they have the equipment, and then they are doing plowing services for about hundreds of other farmers. There was also an issue. They say portfolio. Giraffe project on paper, you probably, Roots project, it will say 80 million. And on paper, it will be probably, you will hear the Ministry of Agriculture has $294 million as portfolio. Portfolio is different from monies that are laying at the central bank or laying at the Ministry of Finance or at the Ministry of Agriculture. These monies are probably laying in Washington, D.C. or in Abidjan, and processes are very cumbersome. So Roots project currently has a funding gap of 20 million. And I think next week, our team, that's the Roots director with the team, will probably be flying to Dakar.
Honorable Minister,
Yes.
$20 million or dollars?
Dollars, yes. Yes. The Roots project has a funding gap of 20 million US dollars. So being aware of that, the Vice President of IFAD is the main sponsor of the Roots project. The Vice President, Mr. Donald Brown, was in town sometime in June, and I have personally, together with my technicians, we have seriously engaged him on this funding gap. That notwithstanding, our team at Roots is already in the advanced stage of going to Dakar to engage our traditional donors for fundraising to be able to fill the funding gap for the Roots project. Personally, this is where we are, and thank you very much for your time, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister for Agriculture. Honorable members, I now invite the Attorney General and Minister of Justice.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Your Excellency, the Vice President, members of the National Assembly, my cabinet colleagues. I would like to first start with the Minority Leader, Honorable Dabo. The Ministry of Justice have not withdrawn the anti-corruption bill, so I think we need to correct that. The bill was tabled, and I think the Honorable Member for Upper Salem gave the clearest explanation of the history and the journey of the anti-corruption bill in the National Assembly. It has been here for more than 2 years. Unfortunately, I missed a sitting of the National Assembly. I think that was the last session of the 5th legislature, due to some breakdown of communication. However, you were part of the 5th legislature. It was decided, of course, the anti-corruption bill was not scheduled for that day that I missed, but a general decision was made for all the bills that the Ministry of Justice had before the Assembly were rescheduled. So the anti-corruption bill, for the records, is, as far as we are concerned, is going through a legislative process. The executive introduced it more than 2 years ago and has not withdrawn it, except for the fact that we are all now considering the ruling, the effect of the ruling of the Speaker last week. And if we will be consulting with the committee if we have to retable or we have to reintroduce whatever necessary step needs to be made, will be made to reactivate the anti-corruption bill for it to complete its journey. So we've not withdrawn, Honorable. Quite a few issues were raised affecting my sector. One of them borders on electoral reforms. Particularly, somebody made mention of diaspora voting. Diaspora voting is catered for within the overall electoral reform process, and this part of it is included in the elections bill, which is also before the National Assembly here. But also the draft constitution was also going, if it had succeeded, it would have. It didn't get through, but you had the president actually, in fact, that's the next issue I'll address. The executive is committed in bringing back the draft constitution. So if we have the draft constitution passed and we have the elections, a new elections act, hopefully the issues surrounding diaspora voting will be sorted out. But it is part of the overall electoral reform, and our position as the executive, we are very positive about making possible for Gambians living in the diaspora to be able to vote. It's a question of how and when, which we are all together working to ensure that this happens. The next issue is the draft constitution. The president is committed and his government to bring back the draft constitution. I have the task of making this possible. I can inform you that hopefully before the end of the year, I've just approved the project. Before the end of the year, some engagements with respect to reactivating the constitutional promulgation process will begin. But you will have to agree with me, some form of process have also to be followed before it comes here. And if it comes here too, there is a lot of steps that needs to be taken. But it will come. We're committed to it, and some activities will start hopefully even before the end of the year. So we are committed to start this because the instruction of the president is we should have a draft constitution with your consent, because it has to come here for approval before the end of his mandate. Of course, a lot of people wanted it earlier, and we are committed to that. The TRRC implementation white paper. I must begin by urging National Assembly members, and by extension, you help us urge the citizenry, that these processes cannot be as fast as some of us might expect. So we probably need to exercise some patience. We are currently translating all the recommendations that we accepted in the white paper have to be translated into a program and an implementation strategy. And quite a lot of effort goes to in developing a strategy, because it has to also be costed. So there is time, there is expertise that is needed to develop all these reforms and issues that have been recommended and accepted in the white paper into a program of activities that is fully costed. The Ministry of Justice doesn't have this expertise. We are a group of lawyers. We are not trained to develop programs and strategies. So we have to seek assistance in this area to support us to be able to develop programs and strategies, and it is the programs and strategies that will be implemented. It's not the white paper itself, the way it was published, that it will be implemented. If the white paper say, for example, reform the prisons, there is a lot, that word is a loaded word. How do you implement a prison reform? You have to come up with an implementation strategy. Are you going to build a new prison? Are you going to change the prison law? Are you going to completely change the prison setup? So somebody needs to sit down, having accepted that we will reform the prison. That acceptance has to be interpreted into a program and a strategy. This cannot be done in 1 month or 2 months. So people need to understand we have accepted the recommendation, but it will take a little bit of time for these recommendations to be implemented. In the meantime, the priority will be that of the victims. We are very committed to the plight of the victims. I think some people made mention that they've been waiting, and my office is working very closely with the victims. We have made a public undertaking that we have put aside some funds for victims this year. The plan was there was supposed to be a victims bill ready. That was our expectation. The bill went through some consultation, and unfortunately, we do not think it will be ready this year, but we are committed to introducing it in your next session. In that bill, we envisage to set up an agency that will succeed the TRRC, that will be independent and will be able to administer what we call the Victims Fund, to continue to pay reparations to the victims. Unfortunately, this agency could not be in place this year. So I am in discussion with the victims so that we can come up with an interim arrangement that government will have confidence in, so that the little money that we have in place for them can be handed over to that body, so that they will continue to receive some form of reparation until the agency is put in place. So we are in touch with the victims, and we are very, very sensitive to their plight, and hopefully some form of reparation might take place before the end of this year, this year as well. Some commented on generally the delay in cases. Somebody said justice delayed is justice denied. I remember at least honorable member from Basse, with your experience with the subordinate courts as to the unacceptable delay. We are equally concerned. However, the kind of democratic dispensation that we all yearn for and we are now enjoying guarantees the independence of the judiciary. So I'm sure the authorities in charge of administration of the judiciary would have had you and your concerns about it. So they will do something about it. As the executive, judiciary is a partner in this process. We continue to engage with the judiciary and to ensure that the concerns dealing with this kind of issues in the administration of justice are dealt with. However, there are many factors that causes delay of cases. Sometimes it's not entirely the fault of one, like judiciary or the Ministry of Justice. It could take more than one reason sometimes why cases are delayed. But where it is purely based on our part, the state, we are working very hard to ensure that people who seek justice actually get justice reasonably fast. But this takes me to an issue raised by member for Latikunda Sabiji, which I consider to be a very serious allegation. I'm not too sure how far he verified his allegations of Ministry of Justice interference with the independence of the judges. He even went further to cite a particular judge that delivered a decision against the state, and probably because we are not happy with that and the judge is frustrated and left. I take this to be a very serious allegation, and I think as members, before you make such statements, I think you need to verify. I can assure you very, very well, there is zero executive interference in the administration of justice under the current dispensation. We don't interfere in the appointment of judges. We don't interfere in the discipline of judges or judicial officers. So even if it is true that a particular judge has left, we don't know the circumstances by which that judge left his duty, and we are not responsible. The Ministry of Justice does not interfere. The executive does not interfere. It could be purely a judicial process for which I don't think it is fair to start pointing fingers to the executive to the extent of saying we are worried that we are going back to dictatorship. I take that very seriously, and I want to assure this House that we are not in any way interfering with anything that is happening in the judiciary. We are guaranteeing full judicial independence in this country, and there are several decisions against us, and we are accepting those decisions and moving on. So that is an unfair comment, and we have not interfered. Since I took office, and I know that has been the status quo since 2017, we have not been interfering with the work of the judiciary at all. There is linked to the delays. There is a particular case that was mentioned that was very striking. I believe, I think maybe some of your committees on tour said you met a pre-trial detainee at Mile 2 who claimed to be there for 14 years. That attracts my attention, and I would investigate that myself with my colleague, Minister of Interior. That is serious, because that means that person was detained for 8 years pre-trial during Jammeh and 6 years of this government without his trial being completed. That, if it happens, it is serious. We will look at that. But currently, we are compiling all pre-trial detentions, and our objective is to make sure that pre-trial detention should not be long. Because we have a system where if you happen to be acquitted, there are no compensation mechanisms. So we're working towards ensuring that pre-trial detentions remain as short as possibly they could be, so that you know your fate, a verdict is delivered. If you are guilty, if it is going to be a prison term, you serve it. But of course, if you are found to be innocent, so that you don't necessarily have to have spent much longer than necessary in detention. Unless there is any other issue, I think these are some of the key issues that touched my sector, and I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Honorable Speaker,
Who is?
just a clarification on what the minister has just raised, because he is saying our committee.
Honorable.
I just want to clarify something.
Clarify what? To clarify what?
Well, I want to clarify something to him, because what he is raising, just give me the permission to clarify. If you give me permission,
Honorable
I will
member,
clarify.
can you something?
Yes, I am saying, Honorable Speaker, the minister is saying one of our members of the committee, of the Human Rights Committee, said something about a prisoner in prison for a number of years. I am saying it's attributing to our committee, but I'm saying individuals have been speaking to different prisoners, but our committee has not come up with a report yet. So it cannot be our committee, it's the individual who raised it. That's what I want to clarify.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes.
But is the member also who said our committee visited the prisons? He said, Honorable member, please, we don't need to debate on this. The Honorable Minister answered the question as was posed to him. That is, you went to prisons as a committee. It looks like, even myself, I understood it as the committee found these things at the prisons. That's how I understood it. But if that is different, is the individual's opinion, though he's a member of the committee, then it still answers the question. It still goes to answer the question that what is found there, if true, they will look into it to solve the problem. So thank you very much, Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Justice. I now invite the Honorable Minister of Health.
Thank you very much. Distinguished Honorable Speaker, distinguished honorable members, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to stand in front of you this morning to answer the questions put forward by honorable members and to address some of the concerns. Honorable Speaker, yesterday there was a question that was directed on the COVID-19 expenditure, and we had prepared some answers. I'll quickly go through them. I know it's been a long day for everyone here. Honorable Speaker, the government of the Gambia in March 2020 allocated a sum of $500 million to the Ministry of Health to help in the COVID-19 response, and an additional $250 million approved by the National Assembly as part of the supplementary appropriation bill presented by the Ministry of Finance, making a total of $750 million. The said allocation was used to finance activities outlined in the National COVID-19 Response Plan. Through the various components, expenditure was in the following areas: procurement of medical supplies, medical and office equipment, contribution to the construction of the Emergency Treatment Center at Paracetamol, training of health workers to respond adequately, hotel accommodation for the quarantined individuals, and some staff working at the on the front lines. Food and food services for the same individuals, payment of allowances to frontline workers, procurement of operational vehicles, and operational costs and consultancy. And the breakdown is attached, which will be submitted for members for the scrutiny. Honorable Speaker, with regards to accountability in the Ministry of Health, we had some members also talk about corruption and the audit reports. To the best of my knowledge, I didn't see anywhere in the audit report that says there was corruption. But I think what I saw was certain transactions, the risks were high. Honorable Speaker, I think the whole country knows now that since we came to the helm of affairs at the Ministry of Health, there has been zero tolerance when it comes to corruption. I think probably that is why we have made quite a number of enemies in the past period, because of zero tolerance when it comes to corruption. Because we know corruption in the health sector affects lives, because what is meant to save lives is what is lost to corruption. It is not easy reforming a sector. It is not easy changing the bad habits, but I think what we have been doing is continuing, and we'll be happy to be informed if any member or anybody in the community has evidence of corruption, and we'll be happy to tackle it head on. Honorable Speaker, distinguished members, recently, about 6 months ago, we intensified our resolve to accountability and insisted that people are no longer even paid, given interest of hundreds of thousands of dollars to go and make payments when they run activities. We insist that everybody who is participating in those activities must be paid in the bank account by direct bank transfer. Unfortunately, that's not a popular decision. For the past 6 months, probably that is why every now and then you hear people undermining and criticizing us. This is the reason behind it. But I think it is yielding dividends. We are able to conduct a lot more projects and a lot more activities. But at the end of the day, what it is helping us do, I think part of the gauge for a systems accountability is let's look at the partner response, the international partner response. Because a lot of times they are not biased and they are on the fringes and observing. And they tend to hear a lot more than we do ourselves. And the fact that there has been so much confidence in the Ministry of Health, partners are supported. World Bank, the health portfolio of the Gambia is one of the best performing ones by World Bank standard. We've been told many times. UNICEF, WHO, UNDP, they are all supporting the health sector because they have seen our stance against corruption. Thank you very much. Honorable Speaker, the COVID-19 vaccination coverage was also a question put forward. We've currently had 16.5% of the total population covered. This is much less than the 70% recommended figure for us to get herd immunity. With herd immunity, if there's another surge of COVID-19, the tendency is that the infection may not be very severe and not many people will be affected and the population may be saved. But without achieving that level of immunization, I'm afraid if another variant comes, Gambia could still be at risk. So we urge everyone to help us to increase the immunization coverage. Another campaign started yesterday, and they are in the community immunizing, vaccinating people as well. However, the country wants to develop strategies, put forward strategies, and some of them may come to the Assembly for support. That will make it mandatory for people to be vaccinated, for them to get access to certain areas. Many countries who have achieved 70 to 80%, these are some of the steps they took. Post-COVID-19 strategies. It is important to note that COVID-19 is still here with us. It has not disappeared. We're still having cases of COVID-19. Now, the COVID-19 period has been a very difficult period for all governments, for all communities, for all sectors. However, it has also taught us quite a lot of lessons. When COVID-19 struck, most of our health systems were weak, with dilapidated infrastructure, obsolete or absent equipment, and human capacity was also quite minimal. As part of our response, Honorable Speaker, we strengthened the health system, and the health system strengthening is still continuing. Surveillance has been strengthened, surveillance strategies, public health officers and other officials Health system strengthening. The government has invested in infrastructure development, provision of isolation centers in 12 health facilities. The government is constructing 8 emergency treatment centers across the length and breadth of the country. We are equally constructing with the help of World Bank, a state-of-the-art emergency treatment center at Farato, and this treatment center is going to be one of a type in the Gambia, a 104-bed facility with a modern, well-equipped 20-bed intensive care unit, in addition to a modern imaging center that's also going to have a CT scanner, an MRI. There's equally going to be a new national blood bank and new national public health laboratory with a conference center for the Ministry of Health. The Ndeban Health Center, the Ndeban Medical Center in Bakau has been upgraded as part of our response to COVID-19, but it is now serving as an emergency unit of the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital, where the main hospital is being upgraded, expanded, and renovated. These are amongst the many infrastructural projects government has embarked on in the sector. With regards to capacity building, many health workers have been trained in various aspects, including surveillance, case management, infection prevention and control, and the training is still ongoing. The ministry has increased the intake at both the state-enrolled nurses school in Bansang and the community health nurses school in Mansakonko, and we have expanded, built new classroom blocks and new dormitories to accommodate these individuals. We've equally started specialization program for doctors at the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. I must say, Mr. Speaker, this is a big plus for this country. Now we have over 30 young Gambian doctors who are specializing to become surgeons, obstetricians, gynecologists, pediatricians, family physicians, and internal medicine physicians right here in Banjul. They are being trained. Equipment and medical supplies, the government and partners have procured, and we are still procuring numerous equipment and medical supplies. Amongst these are life-saving ventilators, monitors, and others. We are happy to inform this Honorable Assembly that through the support of partners, we have now gotten 2 large oxygen plants for the country. That had never happened before. One of the plants has already even started putting oxygen into cylinders for other facilities to also benefit. We've also, the President, His Excellency, has recently launched a clinical waste treatment center in Farato. Honorable Speaker, this has been a big problem for the country and many developing countries, in the sense that waste directly from the health facilities is dumped at the Mile 2 dump site, irrespective of whether they are body parts, dressing materials or not. These are washed by the rain into the streams, and children equally go to pick these items from there. But now we have this waste management system in Farato, a modern state-of-the-art. Equally speaking, we have gotten 7 industrial incinerators in all the 7 health regions of the country. Mr. Speaker, there was also a question on drug shortage in public health facilities. The Ministry of Health has signed a drug procurement contract for the year 20 It is important to let you know that all health facilities have a stopgap measure to procure essential medicines through the results-based financing project. That's the RBF. In the RBF program, 60% of payment in the RBF program, the World Bank, and with contribution from the Gambia government, from the GLF, has a performance-based contract with health facilities. Now, based on the number of immunization, the number of deliveries, the data entry, satisfaction rate, and so many other factors, these facilities are given some amount of money every quarter. 60% of this is supposed to be plowed back into the facility to renovate, minor renovations, and also to buy essential medications. 40% is given, shared among the staff as a performance bonus. Honorable Speaker, this most of the time is not mentioned when people complain in the facilities. They don't mention this, but it's important for you to know. And we have now decided to be sharing the information regarding this with honorable members so that you know the facilities in your communities, how much they are getting per quarter, so that you'll be able to hold people accountable in the facilities and ask the relevant questions. Honorable Speaker, there was a question which said there was water was not available on the 15th of September at the Edward 2022 in the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. The water supply from NAWEC is no longer coming as usual. This has caused many interruptions of water supply at the main hospital. We've been informed that the water is pumped from the NAWEC sources to the hospital now once a day. The hospital, with the increased number of patients, unfortunately, that's not adequate for the hospital. Attempts at drilling a borehole at the hospital were not successful because of the topography and the salt water in Banjul. The ministry is working with partners to get additional overhead tanks before the problem is resolved by NAWEC. Honorable Speaker, the honorable member, there was an honorable member who asked of the promise made to build a dialysis unit in Bansang Hospital and the lack of surgeons in the hospital as well. The dialysis unit in Bansang is already been renovated, has already been renovated. However, we plan to expand it to increase the capacity to be able to take care of the people in that part of our country. New hemodialysis machines are currently being procured with the help of partners. Staff are also being trained in preparation for the commencement of dialysis. The services will commence soon. With regards to the doctors, there are currently 3 obstetrician gynecologists and 1 general surgeon in that hospital, and the ministry has requested for additional doctors from Cuba to strengthen the health service delivery. We are equally training many other Gambian doctors in the hospital, EFSTH, as we mentioned earlier. There was a question on neglected and deteriorated Bian General Hospital from the member of the area. The hospital is not neglected. We want to reassure the honorable member. The Ministry of Health has secured funding from the World Bank to renovate some health facilities, and this includes the Bian General Hospital. Assessment and designs have already been completed, and we are now awaiting finalization to commence work. However, a team is being sent to Biam Hospital for a quick resolution of the very urgent issues. Another member asked, put forward a comment with regards to the issues of drivers and maintenance of community ambulances. 80 community ambulances were distributed throughout the country by His Excellency the President to alleviate the suffering of patients in getting to health facilities, especially the very sick, the young, and the pregnant women. The drivers are chosen from the communities and are employed by government. Fueling and maintenance of the vehicles are also done by government. There were some challenges in carrying out maintenance of some vehicles up country, but these have now all been resolved. What is the reason for the ban on paracetamol syrups? That was asked by the NAM for, I think, Joshua yesterday. The Gambia has recently experienced very heavy rains which are associated with flash floods in many communities in the country. Floods are known to cause a number of health problems. Diarrheal diseases, for example, cholera outbreaks, are common during the rainy season, especially when there are floods. This is mainly as a result of contamination of water and food during these occurrences. Recently, we have seen referrals of children from most parts of the country except North Bank East, which also did not have much floods, with symptoms of diarrhea, vomiting, fever, and some of them have low urine output or no urine at all. A diagnosis of acute kidney injury was made. Acute kidney injury is a sudden deterioration of the function of the kidney, and it has a high mortality in children. These children continue treatment on referral at the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. They continue treatment. However, mortality was high amongst them. The mortality data, however, is similar to that of the same period last year, when there was no such problem. This probably epidemiologically implies a shift in causes of mortality. Various investigations were carried out and some are still being carried out. Initial suggestion was that this could have been caused by bacteria called E. coli. E. coli has been isolated in the stool samples of some of the patients. A type of E. coli producing a toxin that causes kidney damage was also identified. However, many of the children had also been given paracetamol syrup as part of their treatment, as paracetamol is the commonest drug used for many illnesses. The pediatrics department currently is headed by a professor of nephrology who is a kidney specialist. That means he has an edge and he probably has sharper tools with her experience. And we also got in a Gambian nephrologist who came back from studies recently. This has enhanced our ability to pick up some of these diseases early. These nephrologists had had previous knowledge of a similar problem caused by contaminated paracetamol in Nigeria, in Panama, and Bangladesh, and other countries. This, coupled with the sequence of events clinically, gave rise to the suspicion that paracetamol or other medications might also be potential causes in addition to the bacterial infection. This has warranted the quarantine, the suspension of paracetamol and promethazine syrups until investigations are conclusive. Both possibilities of bacterial infections, paracetamol, or other agents of toxicity are being investigated. These processes are being supported by the WHO country and regional offices from the onset. They are supporting in the conduction of the lab tests in Senegal, Ghana, and South Africa. The WHO Office for Africa has sent the Regional Emergency Director, who is in country as we speak to you, and is working with our team. The Center for Disease Control in USA has sent 4 experts who are also supporting the processes. The Gambia is currently unable to do, currently only able to do minimal drug testing. For that reason, samples were sent to Senegal, who are also only able to do only few of these tests. A similar challenge is also in Ghana. So some of the samples had to be sent to South Africa now, France, and Switzerland. These were all coordinated by the World Health Organization, who are experts in facilitating this for countries when countries have similar challenges. Most developing countries do not have the capacity to do the quality control tests for medicines, as the Honorable Member asked. However, the Ministry of Health is working with partners to strengthen the current facility we have. A full-fledged quality control lab may cost millions of dollars. In addition, it needs a good number of highly skilled personnel to run. The government will continue to work with partners to be able to establish one in the very near future. Another question was, or that was a comment of appreciation by the Honorable Member for Upper Nyomi, appreciating the President's initiative for bringing the community ambulances to the country, and we thank you very much for that and for those words of encouragement. We have seen the dividends of the community ambulances because referral systems have been enhanced and morbidity and mortality are going down in some areas because of that. The national member for the assembly member for Banjul North did mention the challenges they faced during the floods. We first start by thanking the assembly member for all his support during the recent flash floods in Banjul. He'd been there with the various teams throughout, and we thank you very much for your support. Banjul was allocated a community ambulance, which is currently being used by the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital because of the challenges they have in moving patients from the Bakau Center to Banjul. However, we want to reassure the honorable member that the Red Cross's role is to complement the government's efforts. So the ambulance provided by the Red Cross is actually in the same spirit. The member for Fonyi Bintang did ask, put forward a question with regards to challenges faced at Ndeban Clinic. With the increasing population, many of the health facilities have become too small for their catchment areas. The government has therefore decided to build more health facilities and expand and renovate the old ones.
Honorable Speaker, I want to make an observation.
Yes, can we hear it, Honorable Member?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. By looking at the number of ministers that we have in the House and the Vice President also coming up, I want to make a special appeal if the minister can summarize the responses so that we can. Yes,
Yeah,
or like questions that are similar. Can you please land on my feet, please? Now,
Honorable members, can you allow him land, please?
Hakalam, we are not in Hakalam, please. We are in National Assembly. Now, I mean, issues that are similar, they can be answered together rather than going piecemeal.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister, you are trying to respond to all the questions posed by honorable members. Honorable members are now saying you can put them together and then summarize it. So you can continue, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. We will do as suggested. We want to assure the honorable member for Fonyi Bintang that building a health system is not easy. It takes time because training specialists takes time. Before we get the complete complement of specialists in the country, it will take time, but government will continue doing its best to fill in the gaps by getting support from friendly countries like Cuba, Nigeria, and Ghana, as we are currently doing. There was a question on upgrading the Soma Health Facility. The Ministry of Health plans to upgrade the Soma Health Facility. In fact, the process has started. We already have procured some equipment, and we want to transform the regional facilities. And Soma will soon become a regional hospital, just like the other regional hospitals, inshallah, with its board. Currently, some doctors have been brought in from Cuba who will be based in Soma to carry out the operations that are needed in that part of the country. We did answer the question on the drug shortages. We'll beg to skip that this time around. And the management of the community ambulances also came up again. Honorable Speaker, the community ambulances, we agree in as much as they are useful, but managing them can be problematic, mainly because of human factors. We got few reports of people using them for personal errands. We got few reports of people even trying to take them across the border for unauthorized errands, and we are looking at all those. The German government, through the West African Health Organization, is helping us put up a control center that's going to have GPS facilities to be monitoring these ambulances, and that will come on very soon. Honorable Speaker, the issue of maternal mortality keeps on coming up. Yes, that is because it is a very important thing. Mothers, the birth of a child is supposed to be a time of joy for the family, a time of happiness. Sadly, that's sometimes not the case, and it is very difficult for the families and very difficult for the caregivers, for the doctors, nurses, and the entire health team. But it is a very, very complex issue in the sense that there are a lot of contributory factors. However, I'm happy that the Honorable Member for Brikama North has attested to the fact that it is coming down. But we want to assure the Honorable Member for Sanimentary that maternal mortality has declined from 433 per 100,000 live births in 2013 to 289 per 100,000 live births in 2019-2020, and service statistics in 2022 has even shown a further decline. One life lost is too many, but nonetheless, efforts are being put in place to ensure that it goes to zero, inshallah. However, the community also needs to participate. The health facilities can be there, but the time of the pregnant woman in labor reporting to the health facility is also important. We have seen instances when people say when they go to hospital in the early part of labor, they spend many more hours there. So they will rather go when they think they are close to delivery, and that has created problems. We have also seen people also needing blood, and even husbands not donating blood. So blood donation by the communities is also important because quite a number of them pass away because of bleeding. And when they get blood, they are likely to survive. Early attendance of antenatal care is also important so that diseases like hypertension, pregnancy-induced hypertension, which is one of the highest killers of women when they are pregnant, pregnancy-induced hypertension, so it can be picked on time for adequate, timely intervention. So that's why it is complex. Malnutrition. Some of the pregnant women are malnourished, and that also plays a part because they don't enter the pregnancy in a healthy state, and that is also contributory. However, the health sector will endeavor to do what is needed by us to ensure that maternal mortality continues to come down. There were also comments on equipment, medical supplies. Government, through the Ministry of Health, is procuring a number of life-saving equipment, as we said. The challenges are certainly there, managing them, getting the right equipment, because there are capacity gaps. But the ministry is seeking to set up a directorate of engineering, which will have biomedical engineers that will help us develop the specifications when we procure this equipment, and that will equally help in the maintenance of the equipment. And the suggestion of quarterly reporting was also made, and we intend to improve on our reporting mechanisms so that the people, the assembly, and the country at large knows what is transpiring in the ministry. The member for Talinding did ask about the damage, the damaged community ambulance in Talinding. Honorable member, the ministry is working with partners to get more ambulances for the communities that did not have any, and to replace some of these community ambulances. But we are equally seeing a worrying trend. This is the third community ambulance that got involved in an accident, and most of them are irreparable, and it's all as a result of overspeeding by the drivers. In fact, in the case of Talinding, the vehicle was actually empty. It was not even going towards a hospital. It was rather going home, and it was overspeeding, and then that accident happened around the buffer zone. Honorable Speaker, the member for Lower Nyomi did mention the issue of Fast Njagachoy, and the ambulance situation is the same. We're trying to get some more ambulances, and the facility will also be given when we get more. The member for Nyani did mention the issue of the national insurance scheme. In those communities, I was being briefed that the communities where they have challenges with internet, they have mobile systems. They are in touch with some internet service providers who have some mobile systems, I'm told, that can be taken into those far-to-reach communities, and they will be able to get access to internet services to be able to register them. The honorable member equally mentioned the issue of access to health facilities. Lower Nyomi also mentioned the sea ambulance, and we'll also look into it. I think that is a good thing that we also need to look at. The issue of the Kuntaur Health Center, Kuntaur Health Center is one of the health facilities that will be upgraded during the World Bank project. We intend to change all the asbestos roofs. In addition to that, we want to renovate the entire facility, and the theater also will be upgraded. Inshallah, we get in some surgeons from Cuba so that many of these patients will not have to be transferred in the first place. Thank you very much. Honorable Speaker, this is what we have gathered, and we thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister of Health. I now invite the Honorable Minister for the Civil Service. Is he around?
Honorable Speaker and members of the National Assembly, my colleagues from Cabinet, this being my first speech before the podium, I want to take this opportunity to first thank the President, His Excellency Barrow, for his visionary leadership that led to the creation of the Ministry of Public Service, Administrative Reforms, Policy Coordination and Delivery. I also want to thank my colleagues who, for the past 5-6 months, since the ministry was created, who've been giving us a lot of support, me and my team, to come up with a structure, the scope, the functions of the ministry so that we could in effect work on the targets that led to the setting up of the ministry. Let me say that setting up the Ministry of Public Service, widening the view of the president and the presidency over the performance of the workers employed by the government and not limiting it to the civil service in itself was a laudable initiative to refocus attention on the performance of everybody who is on the payroll of government. The ministry at this point, as you could see in the statement by the president, is working on a lot of issues that could lead to the roadmap that would enable this government monitor performance of individuals and institutions. In the mention of MDAs, there are ministries referring to directorates and agencies. And of course, this could be extended beyond that to include state-owned enterprises, as well as local governments, to get into performance contracts with government, that my ministry and my team in particular will be focused on monitoring, evaluating, and rating, weighting, and in the end, judging in terms of performance indicators that we will all be agreeing with the presidency through our ministry, so that at the end of the day, we have a balance between those that are outstanding in performance, who will be rewarded, against those who were, well, appalling in performance, who would require some consequences or some inducements to improve. So not having had a lot of controversial questions regarding the ministry so far, I want to seize this opportunity once more, Honorable Speaker, to thank you and expect that sometime, well, they have given me, somebody said they will give me time before the questions come. I look forward to those days, but so far, I can say we are at the formative stage, at a very embryonic stage, but a lot has started happening, and a lot of issues are now being directed to our office to start addressing the personnel issues of this country or this government. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I now invite the Honorable Minister for Works, Transport and Infrastructure. Is he around?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity and invitation for us to participate in this very important session. I also thank His Excellency, the Vice President and Cabinet colleagues, Honorable Ministers, and also members of the National Assembly and staff of the Assembly for the opportunity. We had a number of questions relating to the infrastructure sector, mainly road infrastructure. Let me start with the famous Hakalan. which attracted a number of comments from members of the National Assembly. For the information of honorable members of the National Assembly, my ministry had just concluded a meeting with the contractor of the Hakalan to expedite the work, and new schedules have been submitted, and also we've agreed on the level of work that has to be done. Right now, because of the rainy season, what we are doing now is to stockpile the equipment, the number of things that they will need, including bitumen, laterite, and also other materials, so that immediately after the rainy season, they can start the work. However, we had some issues at Hakalan. As you may know, that particular part of the country, the water table is very high. And in the contract, what we had was that they should not go beyond the 5-kilometer radius to be able to have laterite. But unfortunately, we had a lot of problems because we could not have the right type of laterite within even 20 kilometers radius of where the roads are being constructed, because this particular part of the country is mainly sandy. So they could not get laterite, the proper laterite to put on the road. So the haulage has to change in the contract, which also attracted some additional funds to the point that we had to come up with an addendum. And this we had finalized. Now the haulage in the contract has been increased from 5 kilometers to 20 kilometers, so that they could go all the way to 20 kilometers, to get the laterite and then, do the work. We have also been having some issues with landowners, because, the way the topography of that part of the country is, if you need a good laterite, you have to go to quarries where, you need to do the survey and then actually get the proper raw material. Unfortunately, this happened to fall in areas owned by, private individual landowners, and it took a lot of negotiation led by the office of the governor of the North Bank, and also the local chiefs and the opinion leaders there to help us deal with this, and the Ministry of Local Government. I can say that most of those hitches are now being overcome. We also had some issues of right-of-way. Right-of-way meaning that you had properties that are already, along the main highway that have to be done. So some of those property owners also, it took a lot of negotiation. And also we are legally bound that when we want to demolish, you have to go through the legal process and give notice, also give consent forms. In some of those communities, they refuse to sign the consent forms, just like we were having, the issues in Kaur and the Jimbala area. Some of the property owners refuse to sign the consent form. And with this type of democracy that we have, you have to go through a protracted negotiation and then convince the people before, until now, what the previous government was doing, immediately a road was identified, they will go and bulldoze. But now we have to follow the law. We have to, go into a negotiation, and we have to give consent forms. They sign these consent forms, and then on the law also, we have to have 21 working days before you can even do demolition. So all these things are really, really, really a problem. But I'm happy to say that apart from one property owner in Kaur, all the others have signed, and we are working with the National Assembly members of those areas. They have been extremely, very, very, very helpful. Honorable Bo and Seni, Honorable Seni, they have been extremely, very, very helpful, and we have now been able to overcome some of those challenges. Now, the new program that we have signed, a new work schedule that we have signed with the contractor, is to give an extension to May of 2023. The contract should have ended in December of 2022, but that, by look of things, is not feasible. So the contract is pushed to 2023 of May to give him the opportunity to finalize all the orders, and we are strictly going by those, because beyond that, we are not going to give any extension, and that was made very clear. Now, the Kaur Jimbala also, that one is scheduled to finish in December of this year, and they are making tremendous progress. Immediately after the rains, they are going to lay the asphalt, and we are hopeful that that will start very soon, because most of the major works have been finished in those areas, and the culverts have already been done. Now, the Jambu Road, which was an issue of discussion by at least 2 or 3 members of the National Assembly, including the member for Central Badibu, who also is resident in Jambu along that road. Let me assure you that what you have seen circulating in the social media is the part of the road that I have instructed that it be redone again, because the water table there also is a bit high, and we have seen that when it rains, the rainwaters actually cover the road. So it is going to be raised. It's part of a design default that we have discovered. So it is going to be now 600 meters of concrete rather than asphalt that has been laid. And we have, yes, this particular contract, we have a lot of issues with it, and I have personally intervened, and I instructed that the contractors should not be paid until some of those works have been done. And I can assure you that this is a road that is not completed. The works are still ongoing, and part of those areas where you have seen the potholes, they are to be concreted at the end of this rainy season. So that work is already done. Now, the OIC roads. To assure all of you that the OIC roads, the contract is going to deliver to the government in February of 2023. We are on course. Right now, just Tuesday morning, we had a meeting with all the contractors, and we have looked at the new work schedules, and we have also brought in the National Army for the first time to be part of our construction initiatives. This is for 2 reasons. One, to empower and build the capacity of the National Army to, have the necessary skills to be part of the road construction initiative of the government, because this is what is happening in other countries. But also, being a disciplined force, it will help us deal with a whole lot of delay, issues that we have been experiencing on this road, especially trenching, because the major problem that we have for the construction of roads in urban areas is the transfer of services like the NAWEC pipes, water and electricity, and also the GAMTEL, cables. So what we are doing now is that the National Army, this is outsourced to them. They will do the trenching and then move these services while the road construction is going on. And we are hopeful that the drainage facilities that are being built on either side of the road will be finished by end of October in almost all the major roads that we have identified. And then immediately, you will see tremendous progress on the road construction. Interestingly, also, we have put an agreement. We have agreed with the contractors to outsource to multiple contractors while ensuring that quality is not compromised. So we will see an intense, actions on the identified roads, and also the Battle Harden Highway. The extension is going on very well. They are already doing the 2 overhead bridges. Work has already started at the Brusubi roundabout and also the Old Yundum roundabout. And we are hopeful that this contract also, the first phase of it, which will go all the way to Senegambia, will be completed, within schedule for the as signed with the contractor. An issue of project monitoring was mentioned. I can tell you that we have a very robust project monitoring system in place. Every week, the site engineers, the NRA, a representative of my ministry at the work site, and the contractors meet. Every month, we do what we call project inspection meetings, and also we do on-the-spot checks, with the contractors on all the road sites. So that is very, very robust that we have in place. And yes, we are very concerned about timelines, and I can assure the National Assembly that the ministry is working very hard with the Ministry of Finance to ensure that we also, keep the side of our bargain by paying the contractors on time, and that is why it is important to still continue to work with the National Assembly Select Committee and the entire House to help approve our budget and then, give the ministry the necessary funds to do all the roads. Almost all the National Assembly members here want us to do roads, and we have identified about 1,200 kilometers of roads that we are assigned to do in the next 4 years. We are committed to this, but we still need the funds, and we'll really be coming to you as we have been doing in the last 5 years to work with you to make, to help us, have these funds available to the ministry to be able to deliver. Finally, the concern raised by the MP of Nyani regarding the issue of the lady who unfortunately gave birth, and then, because of the lack of, ferry services at both ends of Janjambure and Bansang, she died on one of the rafts on the way to Bansang, and in the middle of the river. We would like to know when actually this happened, because we want to take action on this. The ferry services, in addition to providing, services to the people, also have a responsibility, to provide social services. So we will want to know when this happened, and then we will definitely take up this matter. We are really very sorry that this happened. It was never brought to my attention or the attention of the ministry, and it's unfortunate that it happened, but it should not have happened. It should not have happened, but we will take action on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I now invite the Honorable Minister for Lands and Regional Government.
Good morning, Honorable Speaker, Deputy Speaker, National Assembly members. Good morning, Your Excellency and colleagues. And good morning to the support staff of the National Assembly. And thank you once again for having us here to contribute to the great sitting of this August body, attending to the speech delivered by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of the Gambia, His Excellency President Barrow. Honorable Speaker, the first point that was since yesterday asked or mentioned pertaining to the Department or the Ministry of Local Government and Lands was the Tanbe land wetland areas. And that was by the Honorable Member, I think, for Banjo, mentioned. I will respond to say that the allocations for the Tanbe wetland was done by the Banjul City Council and not by the Ministry of Local Government. The Banjul City Council has a lease way back several years ago, and this was the lease they were using to allocate land to individuals and companies and institutions around the Banjul area. And it was, in fact, the Ministry of Local Government and Lands that came to stop the allocation of land that was just by the National Assembly here. And we can say it has contributed to the flood in Banjul, or it may not have contributed to the flood in Banjul, but that is the requirements of the technical team to advise on that. During our tour, I think it has been seen that the government of the Gambia, through the leadership of His Excellency the President, placed a very great importance to the past events that have occurred to this country, particularly the flood that affect the Gambian country as a whole. The first visit to all the flood victims of flooded areas in this country was done by His Excellency the Vice President, followed by His Excellency the President, and followed by various ministries whose institutions or people were affected. Moreover, the Ministry of Lands, the Ministry of Environment, and other sectors of this country. Honorable Speaker, as I have said earlier on, the ministry came in to stop the allocation of land to companies or individuals or institutions around the Tanbi area because they foresee this type of circumstances that Banjul have definitely suffered from in the recent past. Honorable Speaker, the Ministry of Lands is cognizant with the fact that land is a very scarce commodity. As the population increases, need for land also increased. But sadly, the land size never increased. Therefore, we can say here prudent steps have been taken to manage our land very well. The Land Act and policies that have been greatly lamented upon have currently passed almost all the stages, and we are now evaluating them and definitely will be taken to Cabinet before the next National Assembly sittings to be brought here for tabling. Honorable Speaker, despite the law that stating the state-owned lands or state-owning the lands, there is also alongside the customary ownership of land. And there has not been any incident where the government will go and forcefully take land from its people. No, it has a method of claiming or having land from the customary owners. And that always includes a compensatory strategy. The ministry, as we've said, is very open to dialogue. If anyone or anytime feels there is anything you want to put up to the ministry, our doors are open. There was a member who highlighted that we need to dialogue on several issues, and I can assure you that we are taking up dialogue as the key factor to development. Therefore, our doors are open at any given time among anybody who have interest to know anything about the ministry or to find out any problems that your community or people are encountering. Just come and consult. We will let you know and we will be available to you. Honorable Speaker, the Boundary Commission is in existence in this country. But national boundaries cannot be drawn by a single country. You draw it with the other neighboring countries that we are sharing. Therefore, Gambia's boundary with Senegal is going to be drawn both by the Gambia Border Commission and the Senegalese Border Commission. They have a joint border commission that comes to look around all the borders around the country. And I have been privileged to be part of it. So to say that there is no border in some places of the country, I think that could be very much misleading, Honorable Speaker. The borders are completely demarcated around the country. It's just the fact that Gambia and Senegal, these two countries are very funny because sometimes you go and see the boundary under the bed of somebody in one of the communities. You go into other communities, see the boundary peg in the bathrooms. You go to other communities at the Bantaba. You go to other communities behind the seed store. So you may find it very difficult to know where the national boundaries are, but they exist at all corners of the country. I think it's important for us to try and study our boundaries, particularly our district boundaries, where we are as National Assembly members heading to. It's very important because you may count communities out or in your constituency that may not be part of your constituencies. And I'm very pleased that some members are already aware of the significance of the cadastral system. And I think this is one of the systems that can turn this country around, and we've been lamenting over it over a period, and the cabinet is taking a great need over it, and we are discussing to see how we can introduce the cadastral system. This will help the Gambia. Besides its tax collection, both councils and national, it will also help in us knowing the limitations of farmlands, agricultural lands, residential, industrial, and so on. We'll be able to put our country land uses in order and in better perspective. And it also alleviates the country from a lot of these land conflicts we are hearing. Because the cadastral system, the moment you key in any plot of land, it will tell you exactly who owns it and where it is located. So we believe this system can turn the whole system of the country around. It can maintain peace, it can bring income, it can bring several other things. So the cadastral system is one thing and is the baby of the Ministry of Local Government and Lands as we speak. Honorable Speaker, the popular salary issue. The salary market we keep talking about. Salary is a layout that is demarcated by government. For any government layout, there are social amenities available and they are there. The government layout will never exist without those social amenities. You must have a school, you must have a market, you must have a police station, you must have all of those amenities must be available. And this is what the government, there is a layout or there is a plot of area demarcated for market in Salaj. The problem is the women prefer to be by the roadside. And I'm happy one of the members highlighted the need for country or town planning. We need to plan for the future. We don't have to think small. We plan for the future. And then the risks we have observed in the Gambia as we speak today is learn markets that are close by the roads. Look at Latikunda, look at Talinding, look at Busumbala or Farad, look at Brikama, look at the congestion in those roads. Look at the accidents that happen on those areas. This is why Salaji, as the plan, the land for the market is just behind where they are currently occupied. Just behind it. Sorry? And that place is bigger than even where they are occupying as we speak. But because they just want to be by the roadside, that's the reasons why they are there. But, and also there are so many issues that surrounds their present place, Honorable Speaker. And, but what is more important is there is land allocated to the women for a market already in Salaj. And we are trying to encourage them to occupy that place than the current place they are because of so many risk factors. We want to start putting up that type of scenario in the country. We put up places where at least we will be secured, it will be spacious, and we can go into the future. But if we take it tight, it becomes tighter and tighter and tighter every day. At the end of the day, all these spaces are occupied and we have a problem of allocating or having a place for a market, just like we encountering in Brufut. A big community like Brufut, we don't have a market in Brufut. And now it's the responsibility of the ministry to make sure Brufut has a market. Or it's responsibility of the government to make sure Brufut has a market. And these are similar problems almost everywhere. Some communities don't even have a graveyard. So it's the responsibility of government to have a graveyard for those communities. Sometimes you go and buy people's compounds to make sure you use it as, graveyards for communities that are existing. And it doesn't mean there hasn't been land allocated for those purposes. They were. So let's help ourselves and our people to understand, and we go by the stipulates of the policies. It will help us all grow very well. Honorable Speaker, I think I will also intimate to the honorable member that an allocation letter already for the Salaji market is given to Brikama Area Council. And we hope very soon they should be coming there to even construct some canteens for use by the women of Salaji. Furthermore, there is no paramount chief appointed yet in this country. So if anybody or somebody is claiming to be a paramount chief, there has not been anybody acclaimed as a paramount chief in this country. And the Constitution, as we all know, has provided His Excellency the President all the powers to appoint ministers, permanent secretaries, alikalis, and chiefs. And he can also terminate them equally or suspend or also promote or whatever. He has the decision and the prerogative to do so according to him by the Constitution. And I'm sure His Excellency is not flooding the Constitution for any purpose of himself. He is doing it for the betterment of this country. As we've said, the reason why the salary is still been mentioned over and over, and we said the purpose is they are taken to the back near Sabek School purposely to avoid them from one, traffic congestion and the intermittent accidents that may occur, which, as I said, is part of the new approach of enhancing better planning of communities. Honorable Speaker, the demolition, I will bring the statistics of demolition. The way they are crying over demolition is incomprehensible. When the flood occurred in this country, during this flash flood that occurred some time past, everybody in this country was blaming everybody, particularly physical planning and the Minister of Lands. Why are they allowing these people to settle here? Why are they not demolishing this? Why are they not doing this? And then the demolition started. They didn't even demolish people's buildings that are inhabited. The inhabited buildings, the fences is what they have already demolished. So notice that this, and in emergency, yes, we need to give notices. But in emergency, you can give a notice within 24 hours and start your action of demolition. And in extreme emergencies, you don't even need to give notice. You can still straight away go into action, but then you try to evacuate people and implement your demolition exercises. See, everybody, the government owes to everybody. We owe it to everybody for a coexistence. We all need to live in peace. We all need to live in harmony. We all need to live in the much conducive environments. Now this person comes and blocks the road, the waterway, and everybody is saying we must demolish. And demolition started, it became a problem in the country. But I can assure you, we'll get you the statistics to this parliament, Honorable Speaker. I can assure you that there has not been any complete inhabited building that has been so far demolished. The fences, yes, all went down. And non-occupied fences all went down. Non-occupied buildings, some went down. That is not even much yet, but that's about just 1% fraction of the demolition plan. And I think if we have the authorization of government, we need to proceed, not for only a single person, but for the state, or else we'll be running into this flood over. As I speak to you today, there are compounds in Salaji, Jabang, who have to be using generators to pump water out of their houses. Is this sustainable? It's not sustainable. There is no pleasure in anybody demolishing anybody's building. No. Well, Honorable Speaker, I will conclude by saying Israel is just an unfortunate messenger of Allah. He is only responsible of killing. And killing is the last thing anybody or anything wants or anybody would want to do. On that note, I thank you so much.
Honorable Speaker, before he leaves, please, clarification.
Honorable members, we are not going to entertain question and answer.
No, short clarification. Short.
Retirement of chiefs.
Pardon?
I mean, sorry, retirement of chiefs.
Retirement of chiefs.
No, see, we are not talking about retirement of chiefs. It can be, Honorable Speaker, the president can be very modest to say, we can retire you, we can dismiss you, we can terminate your service. He has all prerogatives to do that. So if he retires you, I think that's the best bet you can have. Sorry for that.
Honorable, thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
No, clarification, please.
Honorable Minister, we don't want to encourage dialogue.
Honorable Speaker, this is not dialogue. We are members and a minister stood before.
Honorable member, please take your seat.
No, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable member, please take your seat.
Respect, you should give us
Honorable member, please take your seat.
No, please.
This is your second time, honorable member. Please take your seat. Please take your seat. Honorable member, you must learn to live by the rules that govern us. Please. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Honorable Speaker, this has been the culture of this parliament. When ministers talk, we seek clarification because we are here for a message. He talks about this boundary, so I need clarification. So that's not about the rule of the
all the time to ask for clarification, to seek for information, to call honorable ministers. This is a debate on the address of the president. You debate, and the executive respond. This is not question on time. If you want more information, the honorable minister is there. Write to him, invite him, call him to a committee, and he will respond to you. Honorable members, please. Honorable members, please. Honorable members, I will now have the pleasure to call on His Excellency the Vice President to respond to the remaining issues and wind up the debate.
There are other ministers.
Pardon?
There are other ministers. Look at your list. There's defense, youth and sports. Look at your list.
Discussions with the Vice President, these are the names he gave me. Vice President, you want me to call somebody else? Honorable Minister of Youth and Sports.
Good morning. Yeah, thank you. Good morning, Honorable Speaker. Good morning, Your Excellency, the Vice President, colleague ministers. Good morning to the National Assembly members who are here. Well, mine is not much. I think there was most of them were suggestions and comments on what we need to do better, and that has been noted. But in terms of the key issues, primarily it was the stadium renovation that the honorable member for Olyundum gave an answer to. But just to say that the government is committed to the issue of the stadium, the independent stadium, and already there were efforts that were being made to ensure that we don't just renovate it, but we remodel it to meet the standards of CAF. And that is a huge amount of work that requires demolition, internal demolitions of the walls, and expansion of the change room and the individual seats, and quite a number of work that needs to be done. So government currently has committed 100 million towards it, and that is what has been tendered. And we would go ahead once the whole process is completed to start work. So the stadium was officially closed, and we're hoping that very soon the contractors will start work, and it's expected to last for 6 months. So that's about the stadium. The other things about the NYSS and the training that they do for COP members. Yes, we agree. I mean, the reason why I guess it keeps repeating each year is because every 2 years, the NYSS recruits 150, 151 mostly, young people from across the country, and they go through the training program. Now, last year, actually this year, beginning of this year, we brought back the apprenticeship training program, which targets young people who have not gone to high school. So they either stop at grade 9 or they have not reached grade 9. And so that they also undergo, we call it the FTAs, the apprenticeship training program, which is more of a handicraft training. And that's also 150 young people. So that's why this year we have 300 instead of 150 like we used to have. But that's to primarily cater for those young people that are out of school, young people that probably wouldn't have that kind of opportunity. The same thing with the NAIDI and PIA. Now, I understand the honorable member for Brikama North, Majority Leader, talk about, Minority Leader, talked about the issue of where these young people are. Now, sometimes it's difficult, and yes, we did a tracer study to understand what these young people are doing. Sometimes they're doing the same thing that they're trained, either they're mechanics or they're carpenters or some other young people, whether they're traders and selling, but sometimes you don't find them anywhere, maybe because they have dropped out of the trade which they were trained due to one reason or the other, maybe because the skills that they have learned, they're not getting the job that they want because people don't patronize them and they close their business and go do something else. But that is more for the country, all of us, to decide on what exactly we want to do with our young people who are trained. How do we encourage carpenters to remain in carpentry? How do we encourage mechanics and tailors to remain in there? How do we give them business so that they continue to be in the trade, otherwise they leave? GSI, somebody else, I don't remember who, I think, talked about the issue of GSI and that the National Assembly members went there and there's improvement that needs to be there. Yes, we agree. The good thing is the honorable member for Linden talked about the allocation for the Ministry of Youth and Sports. And I think this is one thing, even before I was appointed, we keep talking about. If all of us, not just the executive, but the National Assembly also want to see improvements in the sector, in that youth and sports sector, we need to look at how much is allocated to the ministry. You expect too much, but yet you give little. I mean, it's very difficult for us to deliver. And this is the biggest challenge that we have. 120 million cannot fund you all the associations and all the activities you have and all the infrastructure you want to do. It's almost impossible. So this is the constraint that we have, and I hope the National Assembly would give us more resources so that we were able to do more. Yeah, so the last thing is about the other sector, the fishing gears for the youth. There's already a project that is being discussed that is supposed to be, we expect to be funded by a course that is going to support young people with fishing gears and canoes and rehabilitation of the landing sites. And then the last thing is about the agricultural part, which is the Giraffe project that is intended for young women and men across the country with support of 20 youth-led gardens and 20 women-led gardens, and supporting 100 young people with get into the agricultural field, be it small ruminant rearing or any kind of agricultural program that they want to do. In summary, I think this is pretty much what was meant for the Minister of Youth and Sports. Thank you.
I now invite the Honorable Minister for Defense. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, Your Excellency, the Vice President, honorable members of the National Assembly, honorable cabinet colleagues, ministers. Honorable Speaker, I would like to seize this opportunity to express my gratitude, thanks and appreciation to you for giving us the floor to respond to the concerns raised by members of this National Assembly. I will start with the question raised on the economic forces in the country. Honorable Speaker, the continuous presence of the economic forces in the country is a sub-regional political decision. The mandate of the economic, if you could recall, expired in December 2021. However, a decision was reached for the mission to be transformed to a police mission in January 2022. Well, due to the spirit of unconstitutional changes of government in the ECOWAS bloc, the authorities of head of states and government of the ECOWAS member countries decided to extend the ECOWAS mission and mandate in the country and also in other ECOWAS member countries. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, if you could recall, after the December 2016 presidential elections, the ensuring political tension and the state of insecurity, it's generated almost plunged this country into chaos. I think we should applaud and recognize the good work done by the economic in this country. Honorable Speaker, moving on to the next question raised by the honorable member on the economic forces hosted at the State House. Well, this is also part of the larger economic group. They are deployed at the State House to defend the seat of government as part of the mandate of the economic mission in this country. Honorable Speaker, the other member also asked about the Gambian security forces when they are ready to take charge of the security of this country. Honorable Speaker, the armed forces of the Republic of the Gambia is charged with the security of the defense and security of the territorial sovereignty of this country. As you are aware, this is a constitutional mandate to defend the country at all costs. It is imperative to note that just last week, the Armed Forces Council was constituted and launched by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of the Gambia and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. And the mandate of the Armed Forces Council among others, is to advise the Commander-in-Chief on the administration and operational modalities of the armed forces of the Republic of the Gambia. Honorable Speaker, other question raised by the member was on defense and security, the cooperation agreement between the government of the Republic of the Gambia and the government of the Republic of Senegal, and also on the bilateral arrangements on the implementation of the right to cross-border hot pursuit and joint or combined patrols. Honorable Speaker, it is to be recalled that we have a bilateral agreement on defense and security, and also a protocol on the operational arrangements for the implementation of the rights to cross-border hot pursuit and joint or combined patrols. It may interest you to know that all rights under the Defense and Security Cooperation, as well as the implementation protocol, are reciprocal and applicable to all parties, meaning both sides, both countries. This framework agreement is basically a simple, friendly agreement that has harmonization of the law enforcement efforts of the two countries. Honorable Speaker, these were some of the concerns raised by some of the members, and I want to take this opportunity to thank you for giving me the opportunity to respond to these concerns. I thank you.
Is it a question, honorable member? Huh? A question?
Clarification. You made mention of the extension of the economic mission, but you did not state the time frame of the extension.
Thank you, honorable member. I am not in a position to give you the extension period of the mandate of the economic mission in this country. This is to be decided by the authorities of head of states and government of the ECOWAS member countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Clarification, Honorable Speaker.
Pardon?
Clarification.
No more clarification, honorable member. Use your positions as representatives of the people as an oversight institution and a law-making institution. And
Honorable Speaker, a point was raised by me, but I think it was oversight by the defense minister and there was no response on that side. Please.
Pardon? I'm not hearing.
I raised the question with regards to the PIU, and I think it was an oversight, and there was no response. Really,
you raised a question, and then it's not answered.
It's okay, thank you.
We heard or said that we as members directed that the honorable minister should rise. It came from us. So, honorable.
It's okay, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, honorable minister. Honorable members, I now invite His Excellency the Vice President to respond to the issues, remaining issues, and wind up the debate.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Allow me, Honorable Speaker, to congratulate all the National Assembly members for their elections to this August body, and to congratulate both the minority and the majority leader, the Deputy Speaker, and you, your good self. Congratulations. I would also want to note that some of the ministers that are not here, it is not out of their own volition, but as a result of prior engagements. the Minister of Tourism represented this country at the funeral of Her Majesty the Queen. The UN forum this year is on transforming education. Hence, the two ministers and the foreign minister are in New York. The finance minister is with the World Bank. That's why he is not in attendance. The Minister of Gender was with us, but just at the time of dinner, she was called that she lost her brother. That's why she's not here with us for the rest of the deliberations. Thank you. Let me try to hold brief for some of the ministers who are not here. But I do so in the conscious knowledge that it is not my area of competence, and I'll just be giving general remarks. On higher education, most members have touched on the transformation process of GTTI and MDI. The gap that I would like to fill is the Gambia College. The Gambia College has the School of Nursing, the School of Public Health, the School of Agriculture, and the School of Education. The School of Nursing and Public Health will be indexed into the University of the Gambia School of Medicine. And the School of Agriculture will go into the Faculty of Agriculture of the University of the Gambia. The School of Education, which is the biggest, that trains teachers, will be hived out, and it will be a teacher education university. The reason is, when I went to Finland, I discovered that why the world was saying Finland has the best, or perhaps one of the best, education systems. And it was Tom Bidiago who said that the quality of education is as good as the quality of his teachers. So when I came back, I decided that we should phase out what was then called the primary teachers certificates, so that the minimum teacher qualification will be at the HTC level for 10 years, after which we'll phase out the HTC, and the minimum teacher qualification will be at the bachelor's level. And it will be like this. At the higher teachers level, HTC level, you'll have 2 teaching subjects in arts, HTC, and you have 2 teaching subjects, HTC, science, and then you have the professional courses, HTC, ECD, HTC, curriculum development, HTC, educational administration. And it is in that form they will graduate into the bachelor's, so that you have the BSc education into teaching science subjects, BAED, 2 art subjects, and so on and so forth. So that's the way for Gambia College. The other thing is the fee, that is being so widely expressed here, the paying of fees. It's just old wines in new bottles. Those teachers who are sent to Gambia College to be trained by MOPS, those teachers of MOPSI who are sent to Gambia College to be trained, MOPSI pays the school fees, their fees. So they don't pay out of their pockets. The ones that, want to go into teaching voluntarily and are not, nominees of MOPSI, higher education gives them scholarship. But these 2 categories of teachers, they paid for themselves. It's up to them whether they want to go to the public schools or the private schools. On scholarships by government, every year government gives us, the National Assembly gives us money for 500 scholarships, just for internal. And this is what is distributed between UTG, Gambia College, MDI, USET, which is former GTTI, and also the American University, because the American University also give us scholarships. So the proration is equal. You know. On basic education, there was expansion for access, and hence you have the number of schools that are being built. But the attention, the policy shift is now going towards quality education. You have access, equity, and quality. So now they are going to focus on quality. You know? The other thing is that just about a month or two ago, they had an international conference on curriculum reform. And they are going to be engaged in curriculum reform. It is not teaching for exams. That is just memorizing.
Salam, 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 salam. Viewers, let's watch this video. Guy, ten watan bilalla tay. Luma fi indi da luta manyo fi tay moyne. Okay, lula fi andi tay moyne. Okay, continue. Gis na sun Gambi fu nekk ni tay yi yépp génné taat bi dafa oppa fofu noonu. Astaghfirullah. Kaya ngi démarré. Thank you, man moma jahal bari ñim est-ce que kay rolong mari e ka coronavirus yeah. Wallahi ya ko en jahal bakele de wati safo do la bondi you can send video ka ko Gambia say afadani bole bo banko ka abin dunia baya wuru dumal na ñoom way Gambia man legi suma laaj moy li est-ce que jamala kañu ñe gene tat la andum min fo gana yen jahal ka bonan August fo kana bi